In 2010, a computer virus was discovered in thousands of the control systems that operate factories, power plants, and nuclear reactors around the world. And this virus was 20 times more sophisticated than any malware ever recorded. It could halt oil pipelines, destroy water treatment plants, and bring down entire power grids. This virus was called Stuxnet, and we should all be concerned. Let's find out why. In January 2010, inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency were visiting the Natanz uranium enrichment plant in Iran. They noticed that the centrifuges, which are used to enrich uranium gas, were tearing themselves apart, one after another. Hundreds of them. Nobody could figure out why. Not the inspectors, not the Iranian technicians who worked on site, not even the engineers who built the system. Meanwhile, a computer security firm in Belarus got a strange request from a client in Iran. Their machines were rebooting over and over again. Even completely wiping the hard drives and reinstalling the operating systems didn't help. Again, the problem was a mystery. But when the technicians pulled apart the operating systems, they found a new and very unusual virus. They called it Stuxnet. And Stuxnet was infecting computers all over the world and spreading fast. Now, these events seemed unrelated at the time, but they were very much connected. Cybersecurity experts knew Stuxnet wasn't ordinary malware thrown together by some basement hacker. The first clue was the size of the code base. Most viruses are 10, maybe 20 kilobytes. Stuxnet was 500 kilobytes. And uncompressed, it was 1.2 megabytes. That's a pretty large piece of code to go undetected. Then, analysts transferred Stuxnet to a new computer just to see what would happen. Now, the test computer was not your grandma's old compact laptop from 1997. The machine was a state-of-the-art, highly protected workstation designed for cybersecurity threat detection. All the bells and whistles. But as soon as the Stuxnet files were copied over, the new computer was immediately infected without anybody doing anything and without triggering a single alert. And that's very unusual. When you install software in your computer, it needs to be digitally signed with a trusted certificate. And the developer supplies a certificate that your computer checks against trusted manufacturers, Apple, Logitech, whatever. A lot of viruses tamper with the signature of the certificate to try to trick your operating system into allowing it to install. Now, luckily, virus protection usually catches this. And you've probably seen that warning when you're trying to install software that's not from a trusted source. This catches a lot of nasties. But Stuxnet didn't have altered certificates. It had valid certificates stolen from two trusted sources, J-Micron and Realtek. Now, these companies make all kinds of drivers for hard drives, USB sticks, sound cards, tons of stuff. And you probably have their software on your computer right now. I definitely do. And when the creators of the Stuxnet worm signed their files with a stolen cert, they wanted to make sure that Windows would install it very quietly, without any warning. And if anyone bothered to look at the cert, they wouldn't care because it was valid. Now, stealing a valid digital signature is like trying to rob a bank vault that's locked inside another bank vault. The security around them is sci-fi spy movie level stuff. They had to physically steal the certificate from inside these companies. That really doesn't happen, but it happened. Some more digging around, the code showed that as soon as Stuxnet infected a computer, it started probing the system, looking for flash drives, USB sticks, and other storage devices. And because of the signing certificates, Windows happily allowed it to do so. What security experts had discovered is one of the rarest and most dangerous kinds of software vulnerabilities. And it was at this time that they went from curious and amazed to fearing for their lives.
Look, I'm not suicidal. If I show up dead on Monday, it wasn't me.
What security experts had discovered is called a zero-day exploit. And it's called this because when a vulnerability is unknown to the software developer and Microsoft and the antivirus community and the rest of the world, that means there are 0 days of protection against it. Nobody knows about a zero-day vulnerability except the attacker exploiting it. A 0 day is so rare and valuable that you can actually sell it on the darknet for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Not a good idea.
It's not. Think about this. Cybersecurity companies research over 12 million viruses a year. And in that time, they might find maybe 10 or 12 zero-day exploits. It's a once-in-a-million occurrence. But Stuxnet contained 4 zero-day exploits. This is unheard of. It never happened before, and it hasn't happened since. Eventually, it was discovered that Stuxnet wasn't trying to steal passwords or data. It was actually targeting the software on Siemens programmable logic controllers, called PLCs. Now, PLCs are small computers used in factories and industry that control pretty much everything: assembly lines, water pumps, power plants, and nuclear refining. Critical infrastructure runs on PLCs. If you can hack a PLC, you can take down an entire country without firing a single shot. Now, this had people very nervous because industries all over the world were reporting their PLCs were infected with Stuxnet, but it was just sitting there. Nobody knew what it was going to do or when. Was the power grid just going to turn off? Was water or gas going to stop flowing? Nobody knew. It felt like a ticking time bomb, because it was. Even though the virus was spreading all over the world to thousands of computers per day, it was primarily targeting one country, Iran. More specifically, it was targeting the Iranian nuclear facility in Natanz.
That doesn't sound like an accident.
It wasn't. A virus this complex and this dangerous requires millions of dollars to create. It takes time, the best programming talent in the world, and absolute secrecy. Experts at first suspected, and then they were positive, that Stuxnet could only have been designed by a country looking to cripple or wage war against another country. This was a state-sponsored attack. To design and deploy a cyber weapon like Stuxnet, you need immense financial resources, a military intelligence infrastructure, and a motive to wreak havoc on an enemy nation.
Do we know what country created it?
We do, but they won't admit it.
So who made this thing?
You're not gonna like it.
Oh,
An intelligence agency, probably,
Probably.
who has an interest in setting back the Iranian nuclear program.
Yes.
Stuxnet was aggressive, but very quiet. If Stuxnet is on your computer and you plug in a USB thumb drive, boom, the USB drive is immediately and quietly infected. You don't have to run a program, open a web page, or click anything. You then plug that USB drive into a different computer on a different network, boom. Every machine on that network is infected. And this is exactly what happened in Iran. The nuclear centrifuges at Natanz were air-gapped, meaning they weren't connected to any outside network. And this is usually a good way to keep a network secure. The only way to infect a clean air-gapped network is
user error.
Yep. User error. Outside contractors who were brought in to work on the Iranian nuclear facility in Natanz had also brought Stuxnet in through infected USB drives. And once Stuxnet was in, it deliberately targeted the Siemens PLCs, which operated uranium enrichment equipment. So these PLCs control the rate of spin in a nuclear centrifuge. Spin too fast or too slow, the entire thing tears itself apart. So Stuxnet got into the centrifuges, and then...
Yeah, and then what?
And then it did nothing. It just looked around and kept logs of everything happening in the equipment. But after 13 days, Stuxnet started changing the speed of the centrifuges every 15 minutes, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. Normally this is something a technician would spot immediately, but Stuxnet was using the data it collected earlier to report back that everything was fine.
But everything wasn't fine, was it?
It was not. Because Stuxnet changes the rate of spin every 15 minutes, the equipment weakens and eventually tears itself apart. Stuxnet was also disrupting power feeds, causing centrifuges to explode. And once the equipment started to fail, there was no way to stop it. Even those big red buttons you see on machines that you hit in case of emergency, those were disabled too. Somehow Stuxnet thought of everything. Not only was this virus created by highly talented programmers, there was obviously input from experts in nuclear enrichment technology, reactor operations, safety protocols. That is a dangerous virus. Over 1,000 uranium centrifuges were destroyed by Stuxnet. This set Iran's nuclear enrichment program back months, maybe years.
Why?
Well,
Iran's nuclear ambitions must be stopped. They have to be stopped. We all have to stop it. Now, that's the one message I have for you today. Thank you.
in the early 2000s, Iran was ramping up its nuclear energy and enrichment program. This was in violation of international agreements, so a lot of the work was done in secret. Also a violation. Now, Iran argued that it had a right to pursue nuclear energy, but US and Israeli intelligence agencies suspected Iran of using its civilian nuclear program as cover for weapons development. So the US imposed sanctions and all sorts of other things to try to pressure Iran to slow down its nuclear program and deal. But even with Stuxnet and other setbacks, Iran kept enriching uranium. They said that they needed nuclear power to provide energy to the population.
Energy? Don't they make oil over there?
Look, I'm just telling you what happened. I'm not taking sides. This isn't a political channel.
Fine. Go ahead.
So every time Iran agreed to suspend its enrichment program, diplomatic talks would break down and they would go back to work. Then they would stop again and start again, and it went on like this for a while. But then the CIA received thousands of pages of documents indicating that Iran was modifying the nose cone of a missile to carry a nuclear warhead.
Oh no.
Oh yes. Then it was discovered that Iran had acquired and hidden from inspectors blueprints for more advanced centrifuge tech. Iran claimed that these documents were forged, but later admitted that they had secretly imported equipment from a foreign source. Now by this time, Israel was getting fed up and threatening military action. Now, bombing Iranian nuclear facilities might have been a short-term solution, but almost certainly would have led to war in the region and perhaps globally.
Oy vey, not another war.
Yep, another war. So the US's intelligence community, including NSA, CIA, and the newly formed US Cyber Command, got to work on what they called Operation Olympic Games. Olympic Games was a campaign of cyber intrusion, disruption, and sabotage of Iranian...
Wait. The US government created Stuxnet?
What, I haven't given you enough clues?
Well, I was just so enthralled with the stories.
I appreciate that. Now, officially, no country has acknowledged developing Stuxnet, but through leaks at NSA and CIA, and using common sense, it's generally believed that Stuxnet was developed by the United States with help from Israel, the UK, and their allies.
Dumb question.
Go ahead.
When you destroy something with a bomb or with a virus, isn't it the same thing?
Well, funny you should ask that.